So I was browsing Reddit and I found this question on CS Career Questions where someone asked, is it just me or is Silicon Valley overrated? And I'm going to talk about my experience having worked in Silicon Valley. So when I first started my software career, I was an intern in the Valley for 3 months, and then I finished my last year at school and went back full time to the same company after that for around another 6 months. So it's not the most experience in Silicon Valley. It was around 9 months living there in total, but I still want to give my opinion on it and tell you guys why I left and whether or not I think it is overrated or not. So the first thing to understand is the living expenses. It is insanely expensive to live in Silicon Valley, whether it's the Bay Area or San Francisco. And even though on paper from the outside looking in, you're making a six-figure salary, and I was making right at 100K a year, I actually did the math, and if I lived extremely frugally, after taxes, I lived with two additional roommates, where I only had like a bedroom and an apartment and a washroom. It was around 2K a month for that, and after all of that, while living extremely frugally and really watching my budget, I would only save around 15 to 20% of that at the end of the day. At the end of every year, I would only have around 20K saved up. So, for example, it would take me over 5 years of working there just from my base salary to save up $100,000 USD if I lived extremely frugally. Now, when it comes to compensation, the majority of the way that engineers that work there for 5-10 years make a lot of money and save a lot of money is through their stock options. It's not actually your base compensation. At most, if you get promoted a bunch, your base compensation will go up to maybe like 200 to 300, and at that point, because of the tax rate, you're still not even going to make that much more effectively than you did when you first started out as a junior engineer. So because of the high cost of living, because of the high tax rate in California, unless you're working at a company there that gives you amazing stock options with refreshers, which means they keep on renewing how much stock they give you at every certain interval, it's going to be pretty tough to really save up a lot of money. And a lot of the times, if you're working just at like sort of a bigger company there that's already established, even if you do get stock options, it's not going to be like a startup where it has a chance of doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling or even 10xing in the next 5 to 10 years. It's probably just going to double at most at that point if you work at like Amazon or Google or Facebook or anything like that. So that's one thing that a lot of people sort of don't understand. And from the outside in, you make 100, you see that you're making 100K a year and it looks amazing, and then you get there and then you're flogged with expenses and stuff like that. The other thing is the amount of time that they actually try to keep you at the company through certain things like making your stock vest over time. So for example, they might give you 100K in stock, but that 100K is given to you 25% at a time once every year for 4 years. So you would have to stay all 4 years to get your initial for 100K in stock in total. And if you get refreshers along there, they're probably also going to vest over a period of 4 years. So it's something that a lot of people there refer to as the golden handcuffs, and this comment sort of touches on it a bit as well. A lot of people think that they'll work there at a company for 2 years and then move up, because one of the best ways to get promoted is to move from one company to another, and you can also get more competitive salaries by doing that as well, and compensation. However, a lot of the times people will stay there because they need to stay there for at least 4 years for their stock to vest, and then by the time they've been there that long, they might have gotten a promotion that makes it so that they have to stay another 4 years for their stock to vest. So it's like golden handcuffs in the sense where they keep trying to create reasons for you to not leave, as not to mention all the amazing perks of being at a tech company in the Valley. It's like the casualness, the work-life benefits, all the free food you might be getting is another reason why they call it golden handcuffs. But not just stocks is limited to sort of these yearly plans. The company I worked at, a lot of people didn't want to leave because their 401k matching was also contingent on being there for at least 4 years. So that's something else to keep in mind. There are a lot of things that are going to make you stay there for longer. When I personally decided to leave, I left within a year, so I had to pay back. Not only did I lose all my stock options, but I had to pay back all my relocation bonuses that I got and like half of my sign-on bonus as well. So when I left, I actually left with almost, after working there for 6 months, with almost no more money than I started with. Because I had to pay back a bit of what I got in terms of sign-on and relocation, and because of living expenses and the cost of getting there and furnishing my place, all the upfront overhead costs sort of offset the amount of money that I saved. during that time. So if you're not planning on being there for a long time, it might be pretty bad. Now, another thing to talk about in Silicon Valley is the work-life balance is pretty good. A lot of it depends on the company and the team, but for the most part, compared to older tech companies you might find in New York or more financial companies that have tech branches like Goldman Sachs and stuff like that, you're not going to be showing up to the business in, business casual. You're not going to be showing up with like a suit or anything. You're going to be in a sweater or maybe like a hoodie or t-shirt and short pants, and I would even wear, sandals and flip-flops to the office. And a lot of the times you can get away with working from home like 1 to 2 days a week. But other than that, it has its perks. The people there, in my opinion, are amazing. There's a lot of young people really interested in tech, and not to mention the networking opportunities, especially if you're someone that's interested in the startup scene. It can be great to sort of build a natural network of people that are interested in the startup scene as well. And you might have the opportunity to join an early stage startup or even found your own. And maybe, if you made some investor friends, get some people to invest. It's probably easier to get investments for your startup in the Valley and than it is anywhere else in the world. And having a software job and working there and sort of networking for 1 to 2 years before doing that is probably the easiest way, if you start with no connections, to be able to do something like that. I know a lot of people that left the company there that we worked at and ended up starting their own company and working for startups where the stock options, if the company succeeds, it's probably worth a lot more than you would get if you worked at Google for 5 years in a row, even though it's a lot more safe, which is also just another trade-off that depends on the type of person you are, whether you're more risk-averse or not. So the reason I personally left, if you are a Canadian working in the US, which I am, I'm from Toronto, you need what's known as a TN visa. And a TN visa essentially makes it so that you are not able to make income from any other, source other than the one you have the visa for while you work in the States. And I had a lot of things that made passive income and a lot of sort of like side hustle and stuff I would like to do while I was in Toronto before I went there for the job. And just the fact that I was barely saving anything and I was missing out on all this income made it not worth it financially for me to be there anymore. So I ended up moving back home. And also, after I moved back home, I started getting remote roles that were contracting gigs, and contracting usually pays more hourly than full-time jobs do, because you're not getting stock options for a contract gig and you're not getting benefits and stuff like that. So they compensate for that by raising your actual rate that you work at, your hourly rate and stuff like that. And I sort of prefer that more. I like managing my own money. I rather have all that money up front instead of have it locked up in stocks for 4 years or in benefits, because then I can go ahead and reinvest that into businesses and stuff like that, like I did. So that's another trade-off. And nowadays, I personally love living in my hometown and stuff like that. I have my own home now, and the cost of living here, even though I'm paying a mortgage and stuff like that, is still a lot cheaper than it was in California renting out a 1-bedroom apartment, which is insane to think about. But yeah, I'm able to save more money. I actually work from home through consulting, and it's a lot easier to get remote work from home jobs now. So I think there's not really much benefit to going in there. Maybe if you want, in the next video I'll do sort of a video on what my 9 to 5 life was like, what the actual day-to-day was like. But essentially I would have to Uber to work every day, and even though it was only like a 10-mile Uber, because of all the traffic, it would take like 45 minutes every morning and every afternoon to like get home and there. So working from home, working remote, in my opinion, I think is way better, way more time efficient, especially if you want to be doing things on the side, like working on new skills, hobbies, or even starting a business. So in my opinion, is Silicon Valley overrated? I think maybe like 15 years ago it wasn't. I think it might have been a great opportunity to make some good networking connections. But as of this moment, with all the remote jobs out there, the influx of people hiring contractors and freelancers, and the fact that you just make more, live in a lower cost of living area, and like save that money, invest it, put it back into a business or something like that, I personally think that it is very overrated right now to work in Silicon Valley. And I personally, if will probably never go back and work there. The two things I love the most about Silicon Valley were, number one, the people. The people I worked with were amazing, although sometimes there's a bit of a tension within the actual city itself, just because you're either it's sort of split into like two categories where you're either a tech worker or you're not. And a lot of the times, because of the cost of living, a lot of the times the people that aren't tech workers have a really hard time getting by, and it's sort of like sad to see the situation that happens in San Francisco and the Bay Area. And I feel sort of bad for what, all the tech companies there have sort of done to the local economy and cost of living and stuff like that. But the two things I love, number one, were the people, and number two, the weather was absolutely beautiful. I don't think there's any better weather anywhere else in the US other than California. I absolutely love the weather there. But yeah, I still think it's overrated. And in my opinion, I'm okay living in Canada where it's cold half the year because of the benefits I get from living here, working remote, being able to do things on my schedule, making more money contracting, etc. So that's my opinion. And if you want to see any other videos like this, let me know in the comments what you're interested in, and maybe I'll touch upon those in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next video.